To the Recovery Daily podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abassi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And today was interesting. In my meeting, the idea of comparing the way we see life to the way an artist sees life. I thought this was really interesting because I see things, the world around me, so much more differently. I don't know. Um, than I did when I was drinking. And when when the literature was talking about seeing things like an artist, it really hit home because I had recently taken, I don't know if it was a master class or a LinkedIn learning class, but it was talking about looking at things the way that an artist does, looking beyond what is just there in front of me. It's like it made me realize that when I look around, I really am seeing things two-dimensionally, or I have been. Not really looking like if there's a tree in a field, seeing that the tree is in front of something else. Like, for example, knowing that the sky is behind the tree. And like if you're painting, you paint the tree. I mean, you paint the sky and then you paint the tree in front of the sky. You don't just uh paint the tree and then color in the sky around it, you know? And so when I started trying this and applying it to these pill bottles I've been painting, which I'm not quite sure if I'm passionate about that or not. It's kind of hard for me to stay motivated to paint those for some reason. I don't know if I'm painting too difficult of pictures. Anyway, um, the reading this morning made me think about, yeah, that when I was drinking, not just when I was drinking, but before I practiced the steps of my sobriety program, I was seeing my world and then seeing the rest of the world colored in around it, you know? That I wasn't seeing my role in the world around me, that the world around me is there, and that my life, my world is in front of that or on top of that. And what I really need is to see it as a part of, like, I for so long never felt like I was a part of. And I talked a lot about that yesterday about am I am I relating in or comparing out? And I think that that's really related, seeing my life as something that is a part of, like relating my life into everything else that's going on around me, instead of looking at my life as like an independent or separate piece. Um, Looking at the dimension of living. So the reading talked about remaining teachable, and that's what I'm trying to be. That's why, like, when I go to my meetings in the morning and I'm taking my notes, I'm opening myself up to seeing life from new perspectives, like a painter looks at different surroundings. So these days, when I walk my dogs, I'm looking at shadows and light. And I think that this is because one of my best friends is a painter. And she talked about the other day, she talked about how I think we were in our book club. And she was talking about how difficult it is to paint live, meaning being out on the field, out, let's say in a field, and painting with your canvas right there. And it's difficult because as you paint, the sun moves and the shadows move. The lights and the shadows move as you're painting. So you almost have to paint faster in order to capture those shadows as they are rather than as they move. And I think that is like being remaining teachable, that I want to see the light and the shadows of my life as they move, as thing, it's fluid. Um, so being able to almost sit quietly and watch it happen. Um, one of the one of the more impactful things I heard this morning was about comparing that to when we're interacting with people in our lives and in conversations. And I really related to this, like while somebody's talking, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say rather than just sitting and listening. Somebody shared about allowing space for somebody to finish saying what their thoughts are. And if I compare that to shadows and light and sitting quietly, I can, like, somebody can be talking to me and I can be like, they get halfway through and I start thinking about how I'm going to respond. Well, that's almost like painting the world while the sun is moving, painting the shadows and the light before while the sun is still moving. Um, if I sit and listen quietly to what they're saying, the shadows and the light of my perspective of life is going to change as they talk. And if I can just stop all of that noise in my head, stop listening to that voice that just keeps talking, um, and really allow the world to happen and then respond to it, that is me remaining teachable. Somebody compared it to allowing our kids to live their lives and not interjecting. That's really hard. I always thought when I'm a mom, I'm not going to tell my kids how to live. Like I'm going to sit and I've given them all I can give them. And now it's time for me to just sit back and let them figure out life. And wow, that's hard to do. But the shadows and the light and the perspective of that they see changes. It changes as they're living and the sun keeps moving. And I need to allow them to paint their world as the sun is moving. I don't know, that makes a lot of sense to me. The another thing that came up was the idea of resentments and self-pity. And this pushes me back so quickly to the times when I was drinking. But I took away the drink and still felt resentments and self-pity. And I had to practice the steps in order to work through those fears and anger and sadness. And if I don't work the steps, if I don't try to work through those things, I'm really just seeing a two-dimensional version of my life. I'm just seeing what's right in front of me. And I have absolutely learned from listening to other people in my meetings and from working through these things that the steps introduce us to, that there's so much happening underneath. There's so much more behind what I see. And the things that get in the way from me seeing that are resentment, self-pity, and pride, the opposite of self-pity, also will keep me from seeing the dimensions of my life. I can't respond instead of react if I don't pause and allow myself to see the sky behind the tree. I'm too focused on what's going on right in front of me, what somebody is saying, and wanting to interrupt them and react. Um, so if I pause, I am allowing myself to not just color in the sky around the tree, but instead to pull the tree away and see what's happening behind it, and then paint the tree, and then respond. So I can change my focus from being inward to outward. Um, my second meeting was talking about regrets, and I I think the biggest, I have a lot of regrets that I'm still working on. The one that I talk about the most, that I feel more comfortable talking about, is my being present for the kids as they were growing up. And I don't think that I was a bad mom. Like, I think I was present and they were a priority for me. But as I see the way that I can interact with them and be a part of their lives today, I just know that I could have been even better. There could have been a lot more color, I think, and a lot more dimension in my ability to respond to the things that they were going through in life. And today, not only do I work on seeing that dimension in my own life, but also seeing that dimension in their lives, to be able to sit back and watch what they're doing, allowing them to have struggles. That is what's adding dimension in their life. That's what is adding the shadows and the light in their lives. And I have to let that happen. One of my close friends in my sobriety network, you know who you are, reached out to me yesterday and talked about how difficult it is to watch our kids having difficult times in their lives. And I mentioned that the solution that I have found is that when our kids go away and they're doing their own life thing, what has helped me, and I was introduced to this in sobriety, is that my higher power, I can ask him, as I understand him, since I can't be there with my kids, ask him to be there with my kids. And this is something that I don't know that when I was doing this type of prayer or request or whatever, that I believed it. I don't know if I believed it or not, but I can tell you what it did was it gave me some kind of peace. It gave me a feeling of increased trust in my concept of my higher power, because I needed it. I didn't have many options. I knew that I wanted to be with my kids and I couldn't be there. I wanted to tell them how to live life and how to make the right decisions, but I couldn't be there for them. So the next best thing that I could figure out was to ask my concept of my higher power, go and be there with them as they figure out life. And what that helps me do, and I'm realizing this today, like literally today, is it allows them to see their lives and it's adding that dimension into their life to allow them to not see the world just as it is right in front of them, but be able to pause and compare experiences, learn from them, and remain teachable because it's not all of this doesn't just apply to me, it applies to my kids too. And I want to, I feel like allow them to do that. And it's hard. Man, it's hard to watch our kids suffer or learn, but it's so important. And what's what helps me with that is remembering that we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. That concept taught me that it took what it took for me to get to this beautiful place that I am in my life right now. And the same thing happens for them. Um, I can't just tell them what the right answer is. They have to learn and make decisions in order to have a greater memory of that experience. And the things that are going to hurt, they got to hurt in order to learn from them. So that's what I was thinking about this morning, and it's really a great image in my head of comparing painting to the way that I learn lessons in my life, the good and the bad. So thank you so much for showing up for yourself and for me today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.